Not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Could we have the lights in the arena down 60%, please? 60%. I don't think we could ask for a more beautiful evening, do you? Okay, watch the skies, please. We now show uncorrelated targets approaching from the north-northwest.
You see that? Yes. Good.
You know about the Phoenix Lights. We're going to be talking a little bit about them, the latest theory as we celebrate the anniversary, even though we've seen things that may prove it otherwise than a UFO. Stay with us.
March 13th, 1997. You guys all remember these lights here? It was 14 years ago tonight that phones and newsrooms and 911 call centers were ringing off the hook. The reason? Suspicious lights hovering over the Arizona sky. They came to be known as the Phoenix Lights, and over the years there have been many theories as to what the lights were. But to this day, the identity of the Phoenix Lights remain a mystery. The experience, some say, was just one of many major UFO sightings, and they say we've been visited for centuries. What proof? Well, one local UFO expert says you just have to look at the mountains.
Oh, well, I've been seeing UFOs for about 15, 16 years now.
It's become a lifelong passion for Phoenix resident Jeff+woolwin.
I do a lot of hiking, a lot of research. I've dedicated 5 years of my life into this type of research. We'll be heading right up there. You can see some petroglyphs with some spirals there. And when we get closer, you'll be able to interpretate, the meaning of it.
Woolwin was one of many residents to see the Phoenix Lights 14 years ago. But it didn't stop there. He's documented years of sightings on his website, going beyond just the traditional lights in the sky research.
Doing my investigations, I'm coming to find out that the petroglyphs here in the Valley of the Sun are talking about what we're seeing in the sky today as far as UFOs and strange things in the sky.
Woolwin says he's found it's been happening for centuries.
You see, they didn't have video cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record their sightings on what they saw back in their time.
And the evidence is written all over our Arizona mountains.
Here on what we call A Mountain, we find this petroglyph here. And it seems to represent a family. And they clearly have their hands up in the air as to say they're in the appeasement pose and they're looking up at two orbs in the sky. This mountain is very active for UFO sightings. Most of the time when I come out here, we do see some orbs up in the sky.
Woolwin says the best time to see the orbs is early in the morning or late afternoon.
The more you see it, the more you're intrigued. You know, you want to see more of them. And I really think that it's only a matter of time when everybody will know that, yes, there is something here. Yes, we are being visited. And we just have to ask ourselves, okay, we're not the only advanced civilizations in the universe. What happens next?
Okay, so what's next? Well, if you're intrigued by the Phoenix Lights, Harkins Theater will be showing a popular documentary on the lights today. It's happening at 2 o'clock at the theater at Scottsdale and Shea Boulevard. That Harkins right there, Scottsdale and Shea Boulevard. Afterwards, they're actually going to hold a Q&A forum after the film so you can chit-chat with the researchers who have been investigating just what happened. Now, just to say that back then, just shortly after the lights showed up, the military did come out and say that they were a type of flares that they were using in testing over the valley. So
I remember that theory.
Yes. Yep.
And on my Facebook page, Jay writes, Phoenix Lights was proven on the sci-fi show Fact or Fiction as a hoax. And he says that the show said that it was done with laser lights and sheets of glass.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
a lot of theories, though. I
that
was
is
at the
true.
UFO convention. What was it, about a month ago? We talked about this. So people are still there. Do you
everyone
believe?
has their
Do you
own
not
theories.
believe? Yes.
Exactly.
The aliens come every night.
Yeah, every night at 12 or 1 a.m.
So essentially, she's saying that the Apulianos, the light beings, built all of the sites.
Saying here, there's actually a crack that runs through. It's like a hole. It's like a triangle right there. I'm looking at it right now.
Wait, in here? Oh, yeah.
And so that used to be open in the time of the Incas. And the Incan would go inside of there to travel.
Wow.
So cool. So what'd you think of it?
I thought it was super neat. Like I didn't believe you when you said how often they would come out, and it was just like every minute, like it was like a new cycle of new orbs just coming, and then they would get all bright in the same area, and then they would just float on by.
Yeah, right over that same area. So it's like they're drawing energy.
Or something, yeah.
There's got to be some kind of energy source there. So, man, that's great. I'm so glad you got to see him.
Me
It was
too.
cool shooting lasers at him, man. That was awesome. Hello, welcome back to the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky UFO show. How's everyone doing tonight? So glad you guys are here. Boy, I tell you what, we got a great show for you in store tonight. My name is Jeff+woolwin. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been seeing strange things in the sky ever since I was a kid. I can remember being back in the 5th grade, seeing a light in the sky and going to school. And one of my good friends, he was a Native American kid. I asked him, I said, hey, did you see that light last night? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, my grandfather says those lights live in the mountains over there. And he points to the west side of Phoenix, to the White Tank Mountains. Well, growing up and investigating these lights, come to find out there's a lot of truth to that. And we're going to talk about some of these discoveries right here on this show. Those of you who have been following me know that, man, I've been filming a lot of orb activity here on the mountain range of Tucson, Arizona, a mountain called Mount Lemmon. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to explain why they're here, why they're visiting this mountain this summer, because I've been filming them ever since May. And we're going to actually show you an orb that flies by, a drone in the daytime. That's going to be great. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why they're here. We're going to talk about the Native American rock art up there on Mount Lemmon and go into a little bit of its history. And so much information we're going to have for you tonight. So stay tuned. I'm glad you guys are here with us. You know, I started this back in 2004. I was filming the Phoenix Lights on the east side of South Mountain. And over the months, it was like the whole summer of 2004, I'm filming many, many lights, much like I'm doing here in Tucson now. I'm filming so many lights on the east side of South Mountain. Well, we ended up making the news, and the end result was we're seeing flares 150 miles away in Tucson and Davis Monthan Air Force Base. Well, that was crazy because these things are here by South Mountain. They weren't way over there in Tucson. Those lights were here in the Valley of the Sun in Phoenix. From there, I moved to South Mountain in 2005. So I love history. I love archaeology. And I've been studying this for many, many years. And, when I combined the two, when I combined archaeology with ufology, I was getting a lot of answers to a lot of questions that I was asking. And I did this for 15 years. I spent on South Mountain, anywhere from hiking the mountain, understanding the petroglyphs, calling down a Native American shaman to actually explain to me the true meaning of what these petroglyphs are talking about, to uncovering the cover-up history of Phoenix, Arizona, that explains on what these Phoenix Lights is, from the Mayans and the Aztecs being in the Valley of the Sun, from the first park ranger from the 1930s, early 40s, talking about the spirits of the earth and sky, talking about how the Mayans were here, talking about how there was sacrificing going on in Phoenix, talking about how there's gold buried on some of these sacred mountains. All this information was buried for the past 80 years until I started doing my investigations in 2004 on the Phoenix Lights. I had no idea what I was going to come up against, what I was going to find, discover, doing this in 2004. And I basically did this for my own self. I needed to get some answers for my own self. And, throughout the years, all the answers seem to just to pop into place. Now, I don't believe there are coincidences. I believe everything happens for a reason. And this is why I'm talking with you today. Everything happens for a reason. This is the information that I have found and that I am presenting to you. And I'm so glad you guys are here. And, so in 2005, after we're seeing flares, they're saying we're seeing flares. In 2005, I started filming these things in the daytime, and they're coming and going from South Mountain. And, when I went out there to try to figure out, because I'm looking for a crop circle, I'm thinking technology, aliens, outer space, things like this. We're being visited from beings from another world. Technology, spaceships. So when I go out there, I'm expecting to find like a crop circle, something, right? To prove that this thing was there, because I saw it land out there. The video camera saw it. We got it on film. And when I go out there, what do I find? I find boulders with petroglyphs on it of spirals and stick figure people looking up at the exact same thing that I saw in the sky. Well, it just so happens, now this was before, this is in 2005. This is before Ancient Aliens. This is before the UFO Hunter Show. This is before Skinwalker Ranch. I'm out there on the mountains, exploring the mountains, understanding the history, watching the skies for over 15 years, right? Putting all this together. As a matter of fact, Pat Uskert, at that time, from UFO Magazine, was in town. And he asked me if I would like to do an article for UFO Magazine. And also, he had this side project that he was working on called UFO Road Trip. And he asked me if I would like to be in the pilot for this show. And I did the article for UFO Magazine, and I took him up on South Mountain talking about the petroglyphs connections to the Phoenix Lights and also to the UFO that we see in the skies today. And from there, he took it back to Hollywood. He interviewed some other sky watchers throughout the United States there. And then he took it back to Hollywood. And then from there, it grew into the UFO Hunter Show. And that's basically how the UFO Hunter Show got started. And so in 2007, the whole team from the UFO Haunted Show came down to Phoenix, and we did an episode on the White Tank Mountains called Arizona Lights. And you can still see that program being aired today. And I'm talking about the petroglyph connections to these things in the sky. So back then, it was all a new subject. And I was trying to explain to some of these sky watchers and some of these other people because I'm watching them. I'm seeing them in the daytime, right? I'm connecting them to the rock art. I'm understanding the petroglyphs. No one has done this ever before. Basically, I have cracked the code on the petroglyphs. We now understand what these petroglyphs are talking about now. And when I was trying to explain this, that, you know what, I think we're dealing with something different here. I think there is something else here. Crafts and aliens and spaceships, that's great. But I think also we're dealing with something else here. And when I'm studying the Phoenix Lights, when I'm seeing them during the daytime, and I'm watching them, these things were clearly alive. These were a living entity. These things were living creatures. And that's what the petroglyphs seem to be talking about on the mountains around Phoenix. Not only South Mountain, but all the mountains around the Valley of the Sun. They were telling us a story, all right? They were telling us their sightings. They didn't have video cameras back then. They didn't have, cell phones. They had boulders to record their sightings on, to tell a story, to tell our generation. I believe the petroglyphs is meant for us. Because now we are seeing what the Hohokam Indians saw back in their time. This is how petroglyphs in the sky got born. Is it crafts in the sky? No, it's petroglyphs in the sky. Because that's what we're seeing in the skies today. The exact same things that we see is what the Native Americans saw, the ancient ones saw back in their time. And back then it was all new. Okay, it was a new discovery. No one has ever done this before. But now over the years, I've been getting calls and now we're talking about jellyfish sightings, right? And, Pat Uskert, he just recently emailed me and he's like, dude. And I'm like, yeah, I told you, right? Now we're talking about jellyfish, and same thing. These things are alive. These are living creatures. So I believe we're dealing with two different things here. I have seen some things that could resemble a craft in the sky. Don't get me wrong here. That's possible. Like I said, I've seen some things that could resemble a craft. But when it comes to orbs and lights in the sky and other strange things that are moving in control of itself, not bobbing around like a balloon, not a wind blowing in it, not paper blowing in the wind, but something that's in control of itself, something that's moving slowly, knows what's going on, hanging around in the sky, going against the wind, things like that, right? That's what I believe is something different. These things are alive. These things are living creatures. I've been saying this ever since I was the first one to discover this in the United States in 2005. Because back then, we were thinking aliens and crafts and the Phoenix Lights was a big craft and all this stuff. But when you do serious research like I have done, not just hearsay, but hike in the mountain, watching the mountain for years, understanding the Native American folklore, understanding the stories, understanding the rock art, okay? Digging up the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona that's been buried in the Phoenix Library for 80 years that talks about the Phoenix Lights and the Mayans that were here. When I opened up that folder that was buried for 80 years, because a whole year I'm finding evidence out there on South Mountain, altars, I'm finding tombs, I'm finding a lot of stuff that the archaeologist isn't talking about. And then the next year I go to the Phoenix Library and I pull out this folder that hasn't been touched in 80 years, and I open it up and it's the first park ranger, Charles Holberg, from the late 1930s up until the late 1940s. And he's talking about the spirits of the earth and sky. And he's learning all of this information from the Native Americans back then, who told Charles the true history of Phoenix, which consists of the Mayans being here in Phoenix, which talks about the gold that's buried on South Mountain in tombs. Okay? Now, why would Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger, talk about this, write about this in his journals? Okay? Unless it was true. And I discovered all of this evidence out there on South Mountain. I've discovered a few tombs. I've discovered the altars. And I understand the petroglyphs. I understand the holocauns. I understand the lights now. I understand what we're seeing in the sky now. I understand their pattern. And yes, there's a pattern here. And we're going to talk about it, you know, in tonight's show. And so back then it was all new. And now everything is now coming into play. Boy, it's taken many years. And, you know, we're seeing more and more where everyone is starting to see these things. And I knew they would. I knew they would. I knew that there was something different here. You know, the petroglyphs are talking about something different. The history. Look at what the history says about these things. Okay? I like to look at it as the 3 points of credibility here. 1 point, we can read about these things from anywhere from 3 to 7,000 years ago, whether it's the Anunnaki text, whether it's some of the Assumes, whether it's some of the, the Dead Sea Scrolls, or some of these other texts texts and manuscripts that we read. And now we can go on some of these mountains, some of these holy mountains, some of these sacred mountains, and we can see the prehistoric photographs, the petroglyphs, of what these ancient texts are talking about. We read about it in text. Now we can go see the prehistoric photographs of the petroglyphs, right? Of stick figure guys looking up at orbs in the sky. And then the third point of credibility is we're seeing them for our own eyes in the sky. This is where the credibility is. Not hearsay, but what we can prove. And that's what I've been doing all these years. We don't go about hearsay. We go about what we can prove. All right? And I believe I have a lot of answers, and we're going to go over that tonight. Boy, I tell you what, those of you who have been following me, we've been seeing a lot of orbs over here in Tucson now, over Mount Lemmon. We're going to talk about its history. We're going to talk about the petroglyphs up there. And, a friend of mine sent me a video of a drone. He was flying his drone around Mount Lemmon, and this orb during the day flies right by him. You're going to see it tonight. You can actually see these lights. Never seen before. These lights going into Mount Lemmon. You're going to see that tonight. We're going to explain on why they're here, what's the meaning of it all, and what's the pattern. So yeah, let's get into it. I can't wait to show you. But before that, I gotta plug my book. So this is my book here. You can find me on the internet. Just search my name, Jeff+woolwin. I'm all over the place. Find out some history and some background information. I started this in 2005. Way before the UFO Hunter Show, way before Ancient Alien, way before Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, I'm talking about energy, right? I'm talking about a different creature, all right? I discovered all this in 2005. Between 2005 and 2007, I discovered a lot of stuff. And today, shows are using my information to this day. And this right here is a book. This is 15 years of research, folks. The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, the covered up history of Phoenix, Arizona. When you scan this QR code, it's going to take you to some of my books, or all of my books, basically. It's actually one long book. It's like, 1,700 pages long. It's huge, right? And so the publisher has only published one part of the book, and then I published the other part, which goes into more detail. And so yeah, scan the QR code, pick up your copy today. The ebooks, they're only $3. You can't beat that. So yeah, okay, let's get started. While my clock chimes in the background. Let's get going. Okay, before we get started, I want to show you the Phoenix lights that I filmed in 2004. Now this is on the east side of South Mountain, and they were over a major area. Now there's a power plant out there that's burrowed down into this fault line of South Mountain. It's on Ray Road, right? And I was filming these lights right over the power plant. They would move in ever so slowly. They would get over that power plant, and then they would disappear. More would come in, and then they would disappear. They're absorbing the energy. South Mountain was created by the fault line under this mountain. And this is the reason why we see a lot of UFO activity around some of these areas that are natural energy sources. Fault lines, ley lines, volcanoes, and also nuclear facilities. These things are absorbing the energy. Look at that thing. Isn't that crazy? This is the exact same stuff that we are seeing in the skies today. Look how they're motionless. They're not falling. They're not moving. They're staying still. They're in a straight line. Look at that. There's 3 of them there. Here's 2 of them. There goes 2 more there. These are different sightings here. This was all in the summer of 2004. I'm filming some crazy lights. Much like what we're doing now over here in 2024. Filming lights over Mount Lemmon. Isn't that crazy? Look how they're acting. Let's zoom in on this. Look at that. Look how stationary they are. So when you speed it up, I've speeded up the video here, you can actually see, them moving. Look how they're moving. When you speed up the video, you can see how they move. So they are moving in the sky, but very, very slowly. Because they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be noticed. These things don't cast any shadows. They don't make any noise. Right? They just magically come into the sky. Okay? Look at that. Isn't that something? It looks like 2 eyes, doesn't it? This is in 2004. This is over a power plant that's boiled down into South Mountain. I've been watching Mount Lemmon for roughly 2.5 years now. And every once in a while, we would see a light orb leave from that direction and fly over our place. Or we would see one flying by our window. But nothing compared as this summer of 2024, as much activity as we're seeing now. Let's go ahead and roll some clips to show you what I'm talking about.
Skyman, Skyman, where do you come from? Where are you going to? Skyman, Skyman, when I walked out into the field, me and my darling, we saw standing there till we started running. Taken at night when the silence of dreams can obscure and enlighten the words riddle slip. I am the prize, he caught up by figures and lines and endures to call back his station here. I see a space light coming. I see a headlight coming. It's coming for me. Skyman, Skyman, where do you come from? Where are you going to? Skyman, 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 Sky. I see space light taken at night when the silence of dreams can obscure and enlighten the words riddle slip. I am the prize, he caught up by figures and lines and endures to call back his station here. I see a space light coming. I see a headlight coming. It's coming for me. Skyman, Skyman, where do you come from? Where are you going to? Skyman, 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 Sky. I see a space light
So let's take a look at Mount Lemmon. This is a Google Earth image of Mount Lemmon. And here we're looking north towards the mountain. And I used the antenna lights here and also the observatory lights here and kind of a reference point on watching these lights come and go from the mountain. We're going east now. These lights don't seem to be going in front of the mountain here. They're not going in front of this mountain here. They're going behind the mountain. They're clearly going behind the mountain. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like behind the mountain. You see all these canyons here? You see all these big cracks? In my investigation on South Mountain and the Native American myths and legends of what some of these canyons represent, they're talking about doorways into the underworld. As a matter of fact, a lot of times you'll see spiral carvings. And sometimes these spiral carvings will go into the crack of the stone. Now, the Native Americans tell us that those cracks where the spirals are ending at are actually doorways to the underworld. But on a scientific analysis, they're actually going down into the fault lines. You see, all this stuff was created by fault line. This mountain was created by a fault line. And so these cracks actually are the doorways. And what these lights are doing is they're coming west and they're going behind the mountain. They're going down into these canyons here. This is the energy source. This is the main reason why these lights are visiting this mountain, is because of the energy that it's creating. And it's cool too, because when they come in from the west and they're going over some of these fault lines, some of these cracks, some of these doorways where the energy is, they glow bright. They're very bright in the sky. And you can actually see them glow brighter when they come over certain areas of these canyons. This is the reason why these entities, these creatures, these light beings, I'm not going to call them crafts. They're not crafts at all. In my opinion, in studying this stuff for so many years and watching the Phoenix Lights, this is the exact same thing. These are the Phoenix Lights, but they're in Tucson. And then, you know, in Texas, we had the Marfia lights and all these other lights around the world. I mean, it's the same stuff. They call it the Phoenix Lights just because it happened in Phoenix. So, technically, this is the Mount Lemmon lights. And they're coming and going from the fault lines, from these canyons. Right in here. And studying this on South Mountain and understanding the petroglyphs on South Mountain, when I saw these cracks here, these lines, see that? It totally reminded me of a light and shadow panel on South Mountain that occurs during the equinox and the solstice. And it talks about the canyon crevices on the mountain here. So here we have the canyons here. There goes the canyons. Now this is South Mountain. Okay? This is South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona. And let me go ahead and back up this video just a bit. There. Now, this is the petroglyph on South Mountain. And what the artist has done is he has put these lines, I don't know if they're natural lines, they kind of look natural to me. It's like kind of a coincidence. Remember about coincidences? But do you see these lines here? We have a petroglyph here. We have a man with a staff, and he's got this staff, and he's kind of stabbing the stone there. We have this arrow, and then we have what looks like a sun. Okay, let's go ahead and play. And then we can see we can get a better look of what the canyons are here on the mountain. So when we look at the petroglyphs, we're supposed to look at the whole landscape. Not just the art itself, but the whole landscape. And so this panel on South Mountain in Phoenix, when we look at the crevices, the cracks in this stone up here in the petroglyph, it's actually talking about what's behind this stone, actually to the right of this petroglyph panel here. And we can see the crevices here. And it aligns with the canyons. So this rock art panel is talking about the canyons on South Mountain that's nearby this carving panel. So September 22nd, 2005. This happens every equinox and solstice. And what the light and shadow does It's crazy. I mean, here we can see what looks like an Indian profile face, okay, at 11:57 a.m. September 22nd, every year. If there's no clouds in the sky, this happens every year. The sun comes from this direction, and as it passes over this boulder, it creates what looks like an Indian headdress, an Indian face, and you can see on how the sunlight is now hitting what looks like the feathers of the headdress. And the man there, let's go ahead and play this video. The man there now is stabbing the light with his staff. Isn't that amazing? Look at that, folks. Look at that. This is when it just starts to get going. Just starts to get going when the light hits the feather of the headdress, and now the man is sticking his staff into the light. As time goes by, we can see more of the headdress, the profile face, and the man entering the light. As time goes by, the light has totally consumed the man. The man is now floating in the light. We can see the profile face here of the Indian, and then we can see the headdress. And now the light has moved over, 1226. The light has moved over, and now look what the sun is doing. The sun now is making its own hill. It's passed over these canyons, right? And now it's making its own hill, right? And the arrow is stabbing this hill. Isn't this amazing, folks? And then it keeps going, and then we have another canyon there, and there's the sun. Is that amazing? Is that just incredible? This happens every equinox and every solstice. And it's basically talking about the energy and a sacred hill, because look at the arrow is hitting that hill. So when I looked at this, when I looked at the canyons from Google Earth, it really resembled the canyons on South Mountain as far as, the rock art and the spirals. Look at the spiral there. It's for the doorway. Okay, so these are energy doorways. And this is the reason why these entity lights, in my opinion, these are not crafts. These things, they're conscience. They know who's watching, who's not watching. I think this is the reason why they're coming in so late, is because no one's paying attention. And they're moving fast, right? They're not like South Mountain when they would just appear in the sky and then move ever so slowly, right, on the east side, and then go up above that power plant, right? Because remember that power plant is boiled down into the fault line of South Mountain. So it's generating that energy, right? And so these lights are attracted to these energy spots, just like on Mount Lemmon. So this North Mountain, north of Tucson, there's many different names to this mountain. So we have the Mount Lemmon, right? And then right in front of that, they're called the Catalina Foothills or the Catalina Mountains. And I've been seeing strange lights out there on those hills also. But this one really caught my attention. Now, we're out there late at night, and I see this light orb appear at the base of this foothill, at the base of this mountain hill. And it travels along what I like to call a mountain vein. It's not a trail. It's not a hiking trail. It's not a road, a car road. And it moves along this mountain vein, and it actually disappears in the mountain. It's not projecting any light rays. It doesn't project a beam like a flashlight would, like a car would, like a bicycle light would. It's just a solid light, and it actually emerges into two lights. You're going to see that here. And it disappears in the mountain. This has never been seen before. This has never been documented before. And we're going to see it right now. You're going to see it here. But before then, let's examine this. Let's take a closer look at this here. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to light rays. So here we have a street lamp, right? And we can see on how the light bulb is eliminating the light ray. But yet these orbs here doesn't. There's no light ray emitting from these orbs at all, right? That's how you can tell the difference, right? And here is the mountain vein that I'm talking about. And we'll watch it move along that mountain vein, and then it will disappear into the hillside. Let's take a look at this. Let's zoom in on this sucker. Let's take a look at this. Here we go. Look how this thing is moving. If this was a car light, a street light, or any type of light, it would be projecting a beam. But yet there's no beam to this. All right, these lights are moving along that mountain vein. Now watch what happens. Look what happens. Look how they seem just to disappear in the hill. You see that? So if this was a car, a flashlight, a bike light, we'd still see it, man. Where did it go? It disappeared into the hill. Let's watch this again. This is amazing stuff, folks. This is what's going on here. They're going in the mountain. They're going down into the energy. This is a perfect example on what we're dealing with, on what these entities do. This is not a spaceship. This is not anything like technology. This is a living creature. These are living entities. Look how they just disappear into the hillside there. Is that amazing? Let's watch it one more time. This has never been documented before. This is the first time ever this has been successfully recorded. Look at that. Look how they're moving. Maybe we can zoom in. Let's get a better look at this, man. Let's zoom in on this sucker. Look at that. Look how they disappeared into the hill. And they're gone. Where did they go? They went down into that energy spot. Now, let's take a look at what this hill looks like during the daytime. I'm sure those of you who live here in Tucson recognize this hill. Right here is that mountain vein that we just saw, that I was talking about. And they disappeared right along in here. This is where they went. Right in here. They appeared here. They moved along this mountain vein. And they disappeared right in this doorway crack. Is that amazing or what? The Ho'oponopono tribe was one of the first settlers after the Hohokams, and I believe that the Ho'oponopono tribe is more in relation to the Hohokam than, let's say, the Pimas. So the Pimas consider themselves also ancestors to the Hohokam. Matter of fact, they're the ones who named the Hohokam, the first Native Americans who first settled not only in Tucson but in Phoenix. And the Pimas named them the people who are gone, the people who got taken away. And you can find more information on my past episodes of shows, also in my book. But I'm more inclined to believe that the Ho'oponopono tribe is more in relation to the Hohokam Indians. And they were the ones who actually first named this mountain. And forgive me if I say it wrong, but Duog, Baba da Duog. I think that's how you pronounce it, which means Frog Mountain. Why it was named Frog Mountain, I have no idea. The history on this mountain is very scarce, and if anybody has more information, especially the Native American myths and legends of this mountain, please send it to me, and we can do a whole new episode on that. But the information is very scarce. But what I did find out is the name Mount Lemmon. And how did it come to the name Mount Lemmon? Well, it was named after Sarah Plummer Lemmon, the first white woman to climb all the way to the top in 1881. And so they named her, because she was the first woman to climb the mountain, Mount Lemmon. So they named her, they named Mount Lemmon after her back in the 1800s. So now let's go ahead and look at some of these petroglyphs. All right, let's look at some of what the Native Americans have left us. And this I find very interesting. Look at this. Now look at this. I believe this is an orb. Look at this. There's an orb there. There's an orb there. So they're telling us the story. These are prehistoric UFO sightings. They didn't have video cameras back then. They didn't have any way else to talk about what they saw, but to carve them on the rocks, to carve them on the mountains. So in order to understand the rock art, you must look at the whole landscape, because the artist is putting the rock art in with the landscape. This is the reason why sometimes when we see petroglyphs high up on hills, high up on mountains, is because the artist wants you to look up. He's telling you, look, I saw something in the sky. And so what better way to explain this, to tell his story, is to carve it in the sky. And so that's what they would do. On certain areas, especially on South Mountain, there's a lot of referencing to looking up. He wants you to look up because he's saying, I saw this in the sky, so I want you to look up and see this in the sky, and this is where I carved this. And so this is the reason why a lot of petroglyphs are carved high up, and also in certain places. So this is the reason why we find rock art in some areas, but we don't find any rock art in other areas, because nothing happened over there. This is the spot. This is a written testimony. This is a prehistoric photograph history of what happened here. This is the reason why you're not supposed to move the petroglyphs, because you're removing the story. You're removing the history from that location. So when you see these rock art, just leave it there, don't touch it, and look at the landscape. Understand what the artist is trying to tell you. Have an open mind to this. He's not just writing graffiti. He is telling you information. And I believe these petroglyphs are meant for our generation, because we are now seeing what the Hohokams, what the Tohono tribe, what the Pimas, what the Hopi, what all these other Native American tribes here in the United States have been witnessing, has been telling us for centuries about these petroglyphs, about these spirits of the earth and sky. And all this stories and myths and legends and carvings is meant for us. It's meant for our generation. This is now time for us to understand what's going on here. Because to understand what's going on today, to understand our future, we must understand our past. All right? And this is where the credibility lies when it comes to UFOs and strange things in the sky. We must ask what the first people saw and dealt with back in their time, because they tell us all over the mountains here. They show us pictures, diagrams of what to look for. And this is it. This is what we are seeing in the skies today. Look at this circle with a dot in the middle. Look at these orbs. Look, it's like a barbell. This right here, an orb with a circle within a circle. So that petroglyph there, that circle within a circle within a circle. So the Phoenix lights, when I was watching them, it was like they were pulsating. They're pulsating light. They're pulsating energy, plasma, and they're pulsating. They're like, it's like throwing a rock into a river, into a pond, and you see the ripple effect. Well, that's what these lights are doing. It's like a ripple effect when they're absorbing that energy. And I believe this is what the petroglyph is talking about. Here we have the orb itself, and it's eliminating all this energy, okay? Like waves, that we see when you throw a rock into the water. Look at this. Here are spirals. So spirals are symbols for doorways into, the Native Americans call it, into the underworld, okay? And there's a few ways to understand these spirals. When a spiral is going clockwise, it's a doorway in. When a spiral is going counterclockwise, it's a doorway out. When the spiral ends down, and sometimes into a crack of the stone, that crack is the emergence point, is the doorway. When the spiral ends up, there's like a vortex in the sky. That's when these lights just magically come in. It seems like maybe through another dimension. They're coming into our world. They're coming in from somewhere. They're coming in from that vortex doorway. All right? And that's what these spirals represent. And it's like looking down into a tunnel, into a hole. That's what the spirals are trying to tell us. They're symbols on where to find these emergence points, these doorways. The Native Americans say they're going down into the underworld. On a scientific analysis, as we just explained earlier in the show, it's talking about the energy. It's talking about the fault lines. They're going down into that energy source to absorb the energy. I first discovered this in 2005 by watching what was going on, understanding the light and shadow, understanding the petroglyphs. Now this is interesting. Look at this rock here, okay? So some would just say that, it's just a, just a regular stone. But then there's others that would say, you know what? That's actually a petrified orb, okay? There are some Native Americans out there who would see this, and a lot of other, like these boulders, like there's a few boulders out there on South Mountain and other mountains, where they say that that boulder is a petrified UFO. Some would say it's a petrified UFO. And then look up on top here. Isn't that interesting? Look how these rocks have been stacked and placed up here. Isn't that interesting? I thought I'd share that with you. Now this is what it's called an anthropomorph. These are petroglyphs found on Mount Lemmon. Okay, so the archaeologist likes to call these things anthropomorphs, shapeshifters. They're shape-shifting. That's exactly what these beings are doing, especially in the daytime. Boy, you can see them on how they're moving ever so slowly. They're in control of themselves. They're not bobbing around like balloons. Some of them go against the wind. They're in control. They're going in a straight line. They're changing. They're morphing. They're anthropomorphing. They're in control of themselves. They're conscious. They're alive. They know what's going on. They know who's watching and who's not. This is how they're getting away with being in our skies, folks. So we really need to start paying attention now, especially as things start to progress in the world. In my studies of UFOs, it seems like when man is really going to war with each other, boy, these things are heavy. Okay? And look at the world now. Look how crazy the world is now. No wonder there's so many of them here now. And it's not just Mount Lemmon. I'm seeing reports all over the United States right now. There's tons of lights going on right now. All right? And look what's going on over there. On the other side of the world, as far as, Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas and all this crazy stuff that's going on over there right now. No wonder these things are flying. Okay? They're shape-shifting. They're anthropomorphing. Right? And to understand our future, we must understand our past. And I go into a lot of it in my books and a lot of it into past shows. But this is what it's called, an anthropomorph. He's shape-shifting. So Let's take a look at this. Let's examine this for a minute. Look at that. You see that? What looks like maybe a head? That could be the orb. That's the orb that we see today. And he's changing. He's morphing. He's anthropomorphing. Okay? Into the likeness of a human. Sometimes they look like animals. Sometimes they look like serpents. The Quetzalcoatl, the flying snake that we read about. Now we're seeing them. I filmed so many flying serpents above Phoenix, Arizona. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, Quetzalcoatl is alive and well, and he's flying around the mountains of Phoenix, Arizona. I have seen this. I have documented this many times. There are so many petroglyphs on South Mountain and the mountains around Phoenix, which talk about stick figure guys, depicting stick figure guys looking up at flying snakes in the sky. Now this says it all. I mean, look at this. Look at this here. Okay? Let's examine this petroglyph on Mount Lemmon. Let's understand the meaning now. You see all this? These are in the mountains. Those are the mountain peaks. And look, you see all these orbs? Look at the mountain peaks. Look at the orbs. All right? This kind of phenomenon was documented over 1,000 years ago by the first Native Americans, more likely the Hohokam Indians, and then from there the Tohono tribe. Okay, so this type of phenomenon has been recorded before. This isn't anything new. This has been going on since the beginning of time, I believe. These things have always been with us. They're not from outer space, they're from inner space. This is their planet also. And this says it all. Look at these orbs flying over the mountain hills, just like what's going on now today. This is carved on Mount Lemmon, and it's still going on. We are still seeing orbs in the sky above Mount Lemmon. What is this? Look at that. I mean, that just says it all. Look at that orb. You see the orb there? And he's emitting light, man. He's like a light, okay? Look at the rings, right? Like I said before, throwing a rock into the pond and the ripple effect, that's exactly what's going on here. This is what the artist is trying to tell us. This is the orb here, and it's rippling with energy or plasma. Look at that. And then we have a normal, probably a coyote here. And then we have this type of entity here. Okay? Isn't that incredible? This is on Mount Lemmon. They're telling us. They're telling us what to look for. They're telling us when they're going to be here, when they're not going to be here. Right? These things are following the sun. They're following the energy patterns. They're following the seasons. Right? The Native Americans, the Tohono tribe, the Hohokam Indians, they've documented all this information for us. All we need to do is step back, have an open mind to things, and understand what they're trying to tell us. It's not some graffiti. It's not just a story. Man, they're documenting what we need to know today to find answers on what's going on in our skies right now. We must take a second look at these petroglyphs. The petroglyphs has the information we need to understand the past and also our future. The answers are there. We just need to understand them. Take a step back. Forget what we have learned through textbooks and history, and we must unlearn what we have learned. And we need to take a second look at the rock art on its stories and what they're trying to tell us. Because when you do, then you understand. Then you know what's here. In the 2.5 years I've been watching Mount Lemmon, This is the first time I've seen this much activity. Oh, sure, this kind of activity was going on well over 1,000 years ago. But recently, this is the first time I've seen this much activity. Like I said before, we'd see one, maybe two orbs flying over the mountain, flying by the mountain. We'd see some lights on the mountain, but nothing to this magnitude. And I would scan the mountain, wee hours of the morning, with my night vision camera. I would be looking for stuff, before I'd go to bed. I'd always, I was always paying attention for that 2.5 years. And in this year, starting in May 10th of 2024, what happened? Well, we were having the Northern Lights at that time. We were seeing the Northern Lights, and we really couldn't see it with our naked eye, right? This was going on, around 12, midnight, between midnight and 1 o'clock, I believe it was. And in order to see the Northern Lights, they said to take photographs of the northern sky. Well, we're facing north, and Mount Lemmon is right there. So my wife is out there, and she's snapping pictures of the Northern Lights, and we can see what she was capturing. But I was noticing little flashes of light. I was seeing flashes of light out there when the Northern Lights was going on. This is May 10th. And she actually caught some of them on her photograph there, in the photograph. And that's when I really started paying attention. That's when I got the night vision camera out, and that's when I started seeing these lights visiting this mountain. Now they're on the west side. All right, so the observatory is to the right of me. It's to the east. So we can see the mountain range here. And then so the next thing that we'll see as far as light is concerned, as far as a marker, is the observatory beacon lights. And then from there, we would see the antenna lights. So these lights were coming and going on the west side during May 10th. I came across this news article at Forbes magazine website, and they're talking about the Northern Lights. And they're saying the appearance of the magnificent display of green, red, purple, and blue aurora, such as the global geomagnetic storm on May 10th. That's the key. Geomagnetic storm. Okay? I believe this is what kickstarted this year's sighting over Mount Lemmon, started on May 10th. Because I wasn't seeing any activity out there before then. I mean, not to this degree. But May 10th seemed to be the kicker. They could have been going on before then, and I really just didn't realize it because, they're coming in midnight, 1 o'clock. So they could have been there. And I wouldn't have noticed them unless we were out there looking for the Northern Lights. And I saw these flashes of light going on out there above Mount Lemmon. That's when I grabbed the night vision camera and I discovered that the night vision was picking up these things crazy. And so it's interesting that Forbes magazine is talking about the geomagnetic storm on May 10th. Can mean the arrival at Earth's strong currents that potentially damage power transmission lines, oil, gas pipelines, railways, and submarine cables. All right? So the Northern Lights, man, I mean, it was nice to see, but it was creating particles above the sky. It was creating particles there. Geomagnetic particles, man, energy, right? which can lead to the sighting of beautiful northern lights. The southern lights, a solar wind. Solar, ladies and gentlemen, energy, right? Caused by the coronal mass of ejections from the sun. A cloud of magnetic field and charged particles from the sun, right? Streams into space up to 1,900 miles per second. Right, well, there you go. That's what I believe triggered so much activity on this mountain. Is because of the northern lights and the solar wind and from the sun's particles. And I believe it has everything to do with the cycle of the sun, the changing of the seasons. In my study of South Mountain and watching the mountain for 15 years, right? And tracking the sun, because that's what the Hohokam Indians did. The Hohokams were the first Native Americans who lived on South Mountain. They were sky watchers also, right? And so they tracked the sun with light and shadow panels oriented towards the east, towards the morning sunrise. Okay, so a lot of these, we just saw an example of that. A lot of these spirals, or a lot of these light and shadows, are oriented on spirals. So the light would cast a shadow through these spirals, right? And it would, over time, it would go through that spiral and up into a crack of the stone. The crack of the stone represents doorways into the underworld, to the energy spot. And so the archaeologist wants us to believe, well, it's letting the natives know that it's time to plant corn. It's a changing of the seasons. Well, watching this and studying the sky activity and the lights coming and going from South Mountain, and along with the day things coming and going from South Mountain, I learned that it had nothing to do with planting corn, but when these things will return. That was the secret here. That was the key. So the first year I watched South Mountain, I learned that on certain months, there was a lot of activity, a lot of UFO activity. These things were visiting the mountain on certain months. And then other months, they seemed to be gone after the equinox, after the solstice, right? So right before the solstice, they would start to go away. After the solstice, close to the equinox, right in the middle of that, it was heavy. There was a lot of activity. And I soon learned that when the sun positioned itself over these energy sources or over these energy spots around the globe during the changing of the season, it attracted these beings to these spots, to these certain areas. And I believe that May 10th, the Northern Lights activated this mountain. It triggered something. It made these things come to this mountain to absorb the energy. So I was assuming that May 10th was just a one-time event because of the Northern Lights. And, I figured, these light orbs, these living creatures, these entities, was visiting this mountain because of the Northern Lights, because of the energy. All right. So I wasn't thinking that it would be an ongoing occurrence as much as it has been. I mean, I knew that we had Northern Lights prior to May 10th that we were able to see, but it didn't dawn on me that those things were still on the mountain. So I had to move right after May 10th. we had to tear down all our gear and we had to move. So I wasn't able to watch the skies. I wasn't able to track anything. I was right in the middle of moving. Well, we moved closer to Mount Lemmon, more west now, or excuse me, more east. We were on the west side. Now we're kind of like in the middle, but we moved east. So my wife and I were sitting out on our balcony overlooking Mount Lemmon. And lo and behold, I see this orange amber light flying over the mountain there. Well, I jumped on the camera and I started filming it. But this time it seemed that they had moved, right? So May 10th, they were further west of the observatory. But now, when I started seeing them again, they're like right over the observatory now. They had migrated through time. And over the next months, I'm watching them. They seem to be migrating. They're moving more east now. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here, we're looking north towards Mount Lemmon. There is the red antenna lights. There's my beacon point number 2. Here's my beacon point number 1. That is the observatory. And this is Mount Lemmon. This is west. This is east. Okay. And so on May 10th at 1 a.m., I'm sitting on the far west side now. This is before I moved. They're coming. One's coming in from the west. And right here is the observatory lights. Those are the beacon lights for the observatory. And now we have some more orbs coming in there. And notice how when they get over certain spots, they glow brighter, right? They get brighter. This is because they're going over that energy source, that energy spot. Whenever they get into that area, they go very bright. They're sucking up that energy, man. Sucking up those particles. Here we go. This is amazing. Look at this, folks. Right here, notice how they both were able to get bright. They both got bright at the same time right in that area. Now it seems that he's getting dimmer. See, as he's going further east. But the one on the left, he's going down behind the mountain there. Behind Mount Lemmon. To those canyons. Let's go ahead and take a look again at the mountain and get a perspective on what we just saw there. What just happened. So now we're flipped over. This is west now. This is east. We're looking on the back side of the mountain. Right here. Look at that canyon right in there. All right. So now this is July 16th at 1 a.m. Okay. Let's get our reference point. Let's get our binking. Okay. So there is the observatory. And so now they're coming over here now. All right. They're a little bit closer to the observatory. Look how he's getting brighter as he's coming over this canyon. Look at that. There is the observatory lights there on the mountain, there over here on the right. And so we have some more lights coming in from the west. And look how they seem to dull out. All right. So they're right here now. They're right in this area here, in this canyon here. Now this is August 3rd at 1 a.m. Look how bright he gets. Look at that. Is that crazy or what? Man, he's really absorbing that energy there. And he's going over those canyons, those energy sources, those energy spots. There is the the beacon for the observatory. There's the observatory right there. There is the light there. Look how brightly he gets. This is August 3rd at 1 o'clock in the morning. So they're over here. They're still over here in this area. They have moved. First he's over here. Now they're kind of like migrating this way. This is August 16th. Now, there is the antenna lights. All right. So they have moved drastically. All right. They have moved considerably because the observatory is more west. It's to the left of us. Here is the red blinking radio tower antennas there. And now we have these orbs August 16th now. So they have moved. They have moved further east. Let's look at the mountain here. So they're over here now, right? So there's their red antenna lights. Let's stop this for a minute. Stop. Okay. So first we're seeing them over here. There's the observatory. Now in August we're seeing them over here. Okay, so there's the red antenna lights. Now they're over here. Now they're coming right in this area, this canyon here. So over the last few months, they've migrated from energy spot to energy spot, and now they're over here more east now. This is August 20th at 2 a.m. And they're coming in later. So they were coming in at 1. Now, August 20th, we're seeing them at 2 a.m. So not only are they migrating east as time progresses, as the months progress, but they're also changing the times that they're showing up now. Now they're coming in at 2 a.m. Let's get her. There's the antenna lights. So now they're more east now. You see that? They're more east of the mountain. Here comes one coming out of the sky there. So here's the backside. So now they're over here more. They're east of this canyon here. See all this canyon here? See this area here? They're right there now. This is August 21st at 2:20 now. They're coming in at 2:20. And they're further east. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? I love that shot. Look at that. So a lot of people are saying, well, these are crafts, but in studying them and watching them, I discovered that these things, this isn't technology, folks. This is another living creature, okay? Just as the oceanographers are finding new species of life below the ocean to this day, this is a new species of life, okay? And I'll give you another secret. They're not from outer space. They're more from inner space. They're not from another world, another planet, but this is their planet also. They have always been here. So Tim, who lives here in Tucson, found me, and he asked me if I wanted to see an orb flying by his drone. And I said, yes, I'd love to see it. So he sent me this video, and we're going to take a look at it right now. And so this thing is going to come from the upper right of your screen and zoom this way. So let's go ahead and play this video. It's going to come right above here. Look how that thing flies by. Look at that. Let's back that up. Move this over. Look how that thing just cruises by. Going to come right up in here. Here it comes. Dang. Look at that. Is that crazy or what? Let's take a look at that one more time. Man, geez, zoom. That was crazy. All right, so let's slow it down just a tad. And let's take a look on what it does. It's going to come up here. Here we go. Here it comes. Meow. Is that crazy or what? Let's watch that one more time. Man, that thing is flying. That's like on a slow speed also. Watch it one more time. Man, that thing is cruising. Now, here's what it looks like when I paused it and tried to get a good shot of this thing. That's the best I could do. Zoom in on this sucker. Look at that. That's not a bird. That's not a kite. It's not an aircraft. Not a craft. Not technology. This is one of them species. This is one of them entities. It's one of them creatures. And it flew by his drone. Thank you so much, Tim, for sending this to us, man. It was great. And if anybody has anything like this or strange lights that you want to present to me and show me, I'd love to see it. That'd be great. So once I was explaining to Tim on where these things can be seen at and like what time, we kind of coordinated a little bit. He's over there on the east side of Mount Lemmon, and I'm like, yeah, they're migrating. They're moving more towards the east. So yeah, once they're out there, I'll let you know when they're out there. So I let him know, hey, look, they're back. So he ran out there with his video camera, and he got some amazing shots. Now this is what it looks like to the naked eye. All right, all these other videos you've been seeing them in night vision. This is what to look for with their naked eye. Look how it gets so bright. Look at that as they're absorbing that energy. Look at that. Is that incredible or what? That's great video. Good job, Tim. That is killer. That's killer. Now watch this. Look at that. I love the pyramids. I love the triangles. So many times I've seen triangles out there above Mount Lemmon. Now this is what it looks like in real time. Well, in regular video without the night vision. This is what you can see with your naked eye. Look at the pyramid coming in here. We have another one following it there. Look at that. Is that incredible or what? I love the triangles. I love the pyramids. Great job, Tim. Keep up the good work, brother. Send me more videos. If any of you have any videos you would like to share, please contact me on Facebook at Petroglyphsinthesky, jeff+woolwin, Petroglyphsinthesky Facebook page. Let's talk about it. I'd love to hear your experiences. I'd love to see your videos. But this is what it looks like to the naked eye. You can't miss these things, man. They're there. Okay? Great shot. Great video, Tim. Awesome. Awesome work. Thank you for going out there and sending this to me and seeing them and verifying what was going on. you know, studying the petroglyphs and studying the Phoenix lights in Phoenix and the rock art around the Valley of the Sun, and studying, you know, the rock art here and studying rock art in other parts of the world, and studying the UFOs that are occurring there. You know, it's all the same story. Okay, it's all the same story. It may be told maybe a little different way, but basically it's telling us the same things on how these beings, these creatures from the earth and sky, you know, interacted with mankind in our past. And this is the truth. This is the history of these UFOs. And one thing that I found really surprising is this little video that I found on the Inca. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that right now.
Los incas tenían conocimiento porque tenía el informe del Yupanqui Puma, ¿no?
So this area is the like the house of the Yupanqui Puma, which was an Inca who was able to connect with the Apulianos and go with them and learn about the universe and the way that the stars move, and that's how the Incas had such good understanding and knowledge, such a wealth of knowledge, was because Yupanqui Puma would connect with the Apulianos and learn from them and then bring that knowledge back to the earth. So Yupanqui Puma's father sent Yupanqui Puma to live here, and with the purpose of Yupanqui Puma learning about everything that he learned from the Apulianos, and to be able to bring that back into the empire. So that he would bring the information like for when to plant what, and also if there was an illness coming, he would be able to bring over warnings. They would learn what plant to use in order to heal the illness that was coming. So they would bring that, and the plant would be growing around here. And they would either be to drink it in tea or like bathe with the plant.
Tienen una máquina especial los hermanos apulianos, ¿no?
So the Apulianos, Apulianos brothers, like in sites like Ollantaytambo, were able to push the rocks together the way that we see them, right? Like in that crazy way we can't even put a paper between it. So here is also a similar construction to that.
So essentially she's saying that the Apulianos, the light beings, built all of the sites, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what she just said.
As opposed to the Incan humans, they had help from the Apulianos.
Yes, she just said the Apulianos had a machine that was able to build the sites like Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman that are so mind-boggling with these huge stones that are more than 14 tons. And she's saying here there's actually a crack that runs through. It's like a hole, it's like a triangle right there. I'm looking at it right now.
Wait, in here? Oh yeah.
And so that used to be open in the time of the Incas, and the Incan would go inside of there to travel.
Wow.
Pretty sweet.
Well, Coleman, are you convinced?
I believe it. I mean, she just told us a bunch of stuff that I had no idea about. Like, she's bringing back Incan history way later than we imagined.
And this is just stories that her family has probably told through generations.
Stories of the community. She's from a community. There's a community that lives around here.
Okay.
And she's from there.
Okay. I mean, she was saying, I don't know if you guys heard it earlier, she was saying the aliens come every night.
Yeah, every night at 12 or 1 a.m. And she was saying too that, like, she said first that they come and they'll take you if you're super healthy. If your liver is perfect, if your kidneys are perfect, if you're a super healthy being, they'll take you and they'll teach you, and they'll bring you back down here to spread the message. And then she said that they also come every night at like 12 or 1 a.m. just to check out things, see if anybody needs help. In order to call them, you need to make an offering, and there's a special whistle that you make. There's a trick to it. There's a code, and that's how she called on them and went with them. But she's saying that basically, like, you call them, but they might not always come. If you're with somebody else, they need to make sure that that person is, you know, with the full health that they need to be in order to be in touch with the Apulianos, because if not, they won't come because
Está bueno también para
their
conectarnos.
energy could
Sí,
kill
bastante
the person
clara
that's
está.
not fully ready.
Era bueno.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that this gave you a little bit more answers on what's going on here, not only here in Tucson over Mount Lemmon, but also like in Phoenix and other places where you're seeing UFOs today. It's the same story, it's the same scenario, it's the same thing that's going on here is going on where you're seeing UFOs today. Make sure you hit that QR code, pick up my books, and also we're on Roku on the Paranormal Family channel. If you like paranormal, if you like ghost stories and ghost hunts, we got a great group of people, great ghost hunters there, great teams on the Roku channel, Paranormal Family channel, PFC. And find us there, find my UFO show there. Make sure you subscribe. And thank you so much for tuning in. And if you guys have any other questions, or you want to send me your UFO videos or any information on Mount Lemmon, I'd love to hear it. Send it my way. Find me on Facebook, Jeff+woolwin, Petroglyphs in the Sky, all one word. Find me on Facebook. And thank you so much. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.